It's been a while, but we're back with Black Girl Joy. Thank you all for joining us, especially since we've been missing for a couple of weeks, but it's okay. It's okay. We're back in the groove. So before I get started, please remember to like, share, and subscribe. Right now, like, share, and subscribe because you want to know when we're going live. And you want your friends to know when we're going live. All right. So this week is going to be one of my most favorite topics. It is the topic of relationships. So many times we hear people say, well, I just do it by myself, or no one's ever there for me. And I just want everyone to know that that does not have to be your reality. The people around you impact how you view the world and how you view yourself. So that's what we're going to talk about today. I had on an Avengers shirt, but our guest told me to take it off. So I took it off. But we are going to be talking about building your super team, your superhero team. Who on your team is contributing to you reaching that goal of life fulfillment, self-satisfaction, self-confidence? Who's feeding into you and who's helping you go? And who are you helping go to where you want to be? So I'm going to invite an old friend, Miss Tangie, to the screen. Here she comes. All right, y'all, say hey. Hey, girl, hey.
Hey, girl, hey.
Hey, girl, hey. Tangie is a coach. She works in HR, and she knows all about building teams. I actually met Tangie through a group I had in Atlanta for moms. And so she knows all about building teams. Tangie, can you just give us a little bit of introduction about yourself?
Sure. Joy, I haven't seen you in so long. It's so good to see you. Let's see. What can I say with myself? I am a 17-year veteran in the HR field. I have worked my way up from HR administrator all the way up to a senior director. I've been a CEO of my own business, outplacement services, MBD consulting agency. I've been a coach. I'm a mom. I'm a wife. Wow. What else can I say? It's so many things to describe who I am. I'm not just my job. I am human. I am superhuman. I am a person.
You are. You are. And so let's just dive right in, right? We have like 25 to 30 minutes to talk about teams. You guys put your comments and your experience in the chat because we will address them on screen. All right, so we're talking about teams. I put out a video about the fact that we often feel like we have to do it alone. In society, we're taught to be independent, right? You got to do all of these things. You got to rely on yourself. Often, sometimes in our family, we're taught, well, I got my own problems, right? I mean, and maybe our family, maybe our friends, we've heard, like, I got my own problems. Everybody got problems. Well, it could be worse, right? Mm-hmm. And sometimes we have this group of people around us, and I feel like we still feel alone. Mm-hmm. We still feel alone. And the people who you have around you really feed into you as much as you think that they don't, they do. And so, Tangie, when you think about building a team for success, what's the first thing that comes to mind?
The first thing that comes to mind is that person's energy. What energy are they giving off? Are they positive thinkers? Are they positive thinkers but not action orientated? Are they, negative thinkers? Those are the type of things that I listen to. I vet my relationships very carefully. And there's a saying that says that, you can choose your friends, but you can't choose your family. Well, the same thing when it comes to relationships, whether it be friendships, business relationships, so on. I vet people very, very carefully. And those who I've chosen to be on my team or my squad, I keep them for years.
Yeah. So what type of qualities do you look for?
I look for someone who can compliment me. I want someone who's smarter than me, someone who knows something that I don't know, someone who believes in collaboration, not competition. Let's see, what else is there? Someone who's fun. I don't want to be around a stickler all the time who's just, we have to do it this way. No, you need to value everyone's opinion and let's kind of take a consensus. I don't want to be around that person who's stuffy all the time. I want to be around someone who makes sense of things. If you see the glass is half full, do they see it as, hey, just continue to fill it up? Mm-hmm. Not half empty, but continue to fill it up. Someone who could pour into you. Those are the qualities I look for.
All right, everyone who's watching, put in the chat, what do you look for in the people around you? So when you are looking through these people and you're vetting people to be around you, you need to think about these traits because sometimes we default into relationships. We default into family. Sometimes we default into coworkers that kind of become friends. And we have these longtime friends that are now our adult friends. And we kind of default like, okay, that's my good friend. But are you being intentional about who is around you?
I am. It is. I'm so glad you asked this question. I had this conversation with a girlfriend of mine of 20 years, actually 19 years. And, she was telling me that it hurts her so much that she had to let go 2 long-term friends. And I asked her why. And it was simple. She was like, I outgrew them. We're on different paths. And when I asked her specifically about what she had outgrown about them, it was just more of a mindset. They were on different trajectories. So applying that to myself, you could think about it as, okay, well, this person has now gone off to college and maybe my skill set is not college, but it's more trade school, something like that. You can kind of put it in that thing. You're on the equal paths, but you're just taking different routes.
Yeah. And it doesn't I think sometimes when we think about dissolving relationships, and sometimes we're not just dissolving relationships, we're recategorizing them. Correct. Right? It doesn't make anyone wrong or bad. It's just different.
It is. When I was younger, I used to call my categories: associates,
Mm-hmm.
friends. Yeah, associates, friends, and business relationships. And I realized, people would have that, that's a negative context. How can people be associates? And how can, and I was like, well, think about it. How often do you speak with them? And what are the topics you speak with them about? Is this someone you confide in? Is this with somebody that you hang out with often? Or you just pick up the phone when they call. So I started giving those characteristics, and then people started to think, and they were like, wow. I'm like, don't let people occupy your space who shouldn't be in that compartment.
Yeah. Yeah. And I found this is crazy. Okay. So I was working when I was in my early 20s. And I find that people like to be in the friend space, right? So very strange. I was 20 something and was like 40 something year old woman. And she would get mad because I didn't treat her like my close friends. And I'm like, it's okay. It's not that I have anything against you. It's just this is my close friend. And I found that that was difficult for people to accept, especially at work, that they were like a coworker and not a like close friend. But I feel like that's okay. I'm some people's coworkers and I'm some people's close friend, and that's okay. It's okay.
I
And
think
it's okay to
everyone needs to have
categorize
that
it.
boundary. Everyone
Hmm.
needs to have that boundary. And I think you're very good at that.
Yeah, I'll put up a boundary. Oh, so Grace looks for what do they do when no one is looking, or what they say behind people's back. I think
Mm,
that's so good because people will say, well, they didn't do that to me. I have trouble. I'm challenged to be around people who I feel like are constantly trying to gossip about other people, right? Or they're acting one way in front of someone and then they're talking about them negatively, not just like, hey girl, did you, like not normal stuff, but like that real negative energy and judging and just being nasty. Um, because I feel like you'll do it to me as soon as you walk away. And
right.
I just don't think it's right. So I look for character, like honest, transparent, integrity. I look for those things when I'm looking at people that are around me.
I agree. I look for those same qualities because what I've seen quite a bit is I call it the high school telephone game. It's a combination of the two. It's she said, or he said, and it's mostly women because a lot of men don't do it, but you never know. Sometimes they do, but it's a gossipy manner, but it's like, oh yeah, yeah, here she comes. Okay, everything is fine, and then you look over that person was like, didn't you just say they stole $20 from you yesterday? you know, but
Yeah.
yet you still cool. Oh yeah, we cool. It was nothing. You know what? They probably needed it way more than I did. Then why
Hmm.
did you bring it up?
Yeah, like you didn't say that before. You didn't come
Right,
to me and say they needed that money.
right. So what's changed now? Why do you feel now that you want to add that piece? Because they're around, because you're afraid to be alone, because you don't
Hmm.
want that person to X you out before you X them out. Like, I mean, I've seen that. I've seen that happen.
Ma'am, you just hit on something. Scared to be alone. Do we keep the wrong people around us because we are scared to be alone?
I believe it. I believe
Yeah.
I believe it's every human's intent is to be near someone. I don't know very many people. Well, there are some. I am an introvert sometimes, most of the
Oh, I'm
time.
an introvert. Yeah.
Most of the time, because I absorb people's energies. So I
Hmm.
like you and I want to be around you, but I have a limit. I
Yeah.
have a limit, and I'm not afraid to say that. Some people get offended, but it's kind of like, hey, you have to understand. I'm so busy. I'm doing so many different things, and I can make time for what I want, but I'm not lonely. I like to be alone. There's a difference.
Hmm. It is very different. And that loneliness, if you're around a bunch of people and you feel lonely, it's something that is not
Right.
aligned within you, right? Like what is going on in here that you are around a bunch of people who are not feeding into you, right? And you still
Hmm.
feel lonely and you can't talk to. I've talked to people who had mates who will say, well, that's your problem, right? Like don't tell me stuff. Don't complain about your day to me, right? Don't complain about your day to me. And to me, those types of relationships are the ones you should immediately sever. Like, immediately sever. I don't care if it's your friend. I don't care if it's your man. Sorry, I don't care if you married. I don't care. And I know I'm not married, so I can say that. But if someone's not willing to simply hear you, they are not meant to be in your circle. It's not like,
Right.
what's the point?
Right.
What's the point?
Right. Because that means they don't really understand you and they don't really get you. And then you're going to constantly put on a mask and hide your emotions at all times. And then, that just kind of feeds into your own inner contempt.
You're internally inconsistent, and you're
Right.
going to be in turmoil because you can't express your true feelings and your true nature.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess one of my first things that I like to say is evaluate your current relationships.
Yeah.
Evaluate them, look at them and say, everyone doesn't have to bring you pure happiness and joy. That's not what I'm saying. It can sound like what I'm saying, but that's not what I'm saying. Everyone doesn't have to inspire you to the point of like Mozart or something, right? But I feel like friends should inspire you. It's actually something I've said that people were like, huh? Like, no, I feel like all of your friends, because those are people you chose, right? All of your friends should inspire you in some way. It doesn't have to be a huge thing. I have friends that inspire me because of their parenting. I have friends that inspire me because their willingness to challenge themselves and push themselves out of their comfort zone. I have friends that inspire me because they take time for themselves or they go on vacation, which I don't do, right? So it doesn't have to be like, president or anything that inspires me. But I feel like your friends should inspire you and make you want to be a better person. What do you think, T?
I definitely think that's 100% true. Just a true story right now. There's someone who I have been friends with, well, had been friends with for 20 years. And I started to realize that when I was in my, I can't say darkest moment, because I did have, it wasn't that dark, but it seemed that way when you're in it.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't there. They were exactly what you said. They were saying, well, oh, you can just get out of it. You can snap out of it. You can pray your way out of it. You can do this. You can get out. And I'm like, that's not what I want to hear right now.
Yeah.
I need some solutions. Do you have any solutions? And it was kind of like, no, it was crickets. And then they ended up losing their job. And they called me and they called me and they called me. And I was not available. And they got mad at me because I was not there for them.
Oh,
And I
wow.
was like, you know what? I need to reevaluate this friendship because it's one sided right now. And I evaluated it and I cut it and I severed it and I burned it and
Yeah.
I didn't look back. At this point, I feel that my happiness matters as much as yours does. And as
Yeah.
we mentioned, people are not perfect and they don't have to be perfect and they don't have to have all this energy and entertain you and make you happy all the time.
Yeah.
But you do need that person who has those characteristics to be a actual friend. And I
Mm-hmm.
think this person, it was a matter of convenience. And it
Yeah.
was just always, well, they always do that. I've been knowing this person for 20 years. Oh, that's just how they are.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, that's not how I want to be anymore. And that's not who I am
Yeah.
anymore. And the fact that we haven't grown together and you haven't noticed this, I think that's a problem.
Yeah.
So it was just kind of like, okay, now it's time to move on.
Yeah. Because a lot of times we put expectations on friends that they just don't have the capacity. Like, they just don't have the capacity to fulfill. It doesn't make them wrong. It makes them wherever they are in their journey, but that just may no longer align with the journey you're at, anymore. So yeah, definitely had similar situations, and I was so proud of myself to say, you know what? Okay, talk. I said, talk to you later. I mean, never mind, maybe not. Bye.
Oh, wow.
Like how you just say, like, okay, talk to you later. It's like, wait, why did I say that? Never mind, maybe not. Bye. And it wasn't to be rude, but it was true in the moment, is that you realize some people only have the capacity to focus on themselves.
Right.
So if in my situation, if I'm going through something dark and it's super dark and I'm like losing a parent, and you say, well, you weren't there for me when I got a house, I just I can't deal with that. So sometimes you do, like, you have to look at situations like that, and you have to be able to cut them off and feel confident when you do that. So let's
Right.
look at a couple of more comments. Russell Butt says, I look mostly for positive energy. Yeah. Yeah. Positive energy. So when we talk about positive energy, it's more that overall positive. Like, you don't have to be positive every day, right? But do you have an overall somewhat positive outlook?
Right. Right.
Mm-hmm. And then we have wrong crowd. Yeah, a lot of us hanging out with the wrong crowd. A lot of us are hanging out with the wrong crowd.
It can
So
be
we
it also
Mhm.
can be comfortability too, I think.
It can be. Yeah. Cuz they know you. Sometimes when we feel like they know us, right? They've been our friend, they've been our family member all of our lives, and now it's like, okay, but that doesn't work anymore. And we're
Right.
comfortable with them, but we really kind of not. Like, it feels, we could joke around, and I'm for sure to say you can't tell everybody everything. So sometimes you may have someone that you can have fun with. You may have someone you can deal with in business, like, and they're like, they meet you right here. You may have someone you can confide in, and that's okay to be able to break it down and separate it into those different categories. So it's not that you always got to kind of like throw people away. I'm not advocating for that, but recognizing where they fit in and if they fit in.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So Tangie, so now you've evaluated your crew, right? Now, how do you, this is going to be harsh. How do you kind of move people out? Because ghosting is a thing, and I would probably be the best at it. But I don't know if that's a mature way to handle it. How do you say, okay, like, this is a person that I'm going to reshuffle or exit out and kind of move them to a different place?
It depends on what category they're in.
Mm,
And for me, I give people decisions to cut themselves out. I'm
mm,
just gonna say that. So there, let me give you a scenario. I had one friend who, I tried way too hard to be this person's friend, way more than I should have. And I started realizing that we were having similar stories. She was telling me that she was trying way too hard to be somebody else's friend. And I'm like, like, you're not seeing that you're doing the same thing to me. So when I got ready to relocate and left from Atlanta and came up here to DC, in Maryland, DC area, um, this person reached out. It was like, I didn't know you moved. I was like, oh, that's because I haven't spoken to you in XYZ
uh-huh.
amount of time. If you were in my inner circle, you would know that I was planning to move for 6 months. So I
Wait,
haven't
Tangie,
heard from
was
you in
this
six
me?
months.
I didn't know you moved, but
No,
I
it
did
wasn't
that.
you. It was somebody else. But it was just the fact that, you know, you kind of, it depends on what category, like I said, people are in, number one. And this person, I tried super hard because I really admired her for everything she did at a young age. And I just
Mm-hmm.
felt like I was like, oh shoot, that person did that, or she did that. She's been traveling here, and she's got this kind of job. I really affiliated her with my inner circle and was like, this is somebody
Mm-hmm.
who I want to be a part of. She
Mm-hmm.
traveling to Germany, she doing this, she doing.
Oh, wow.
I was like,
That
oh, where
ain't
you
me.
go, black girl? Stuff like that. And I had no idea that, I was not her best friend. She had her other
Mm-hmm.
categories of friends, and I was probably fitting in that category the same way I was putting her in a category.
Yeah.
So when I moved, she reached out, and then she tried again where she was like, well, I'm changing my number. Um, Everybody who's on this distribution list, here's my number. I didn't even respond. I act like I didn't even get the text. So that's how that happened. So she literally X'd herself out because she
Mm-hmm.
changed her number. I mean, I didn't answer her the first time, but the second time she changed her number, then that was that. That wasn't my doing. Sorry. There you go.
Yeah. So that's really interesting. So I'm going to give you I'm going to give you a little bit of rebuttal to that, right? So I have issues with conflict,
Mm.
and I have social anxiety. I have a lot of issues. Just say that, right? So I find myself in the past, I'm doing so much better now, that if I had if I had an uncomfortable moment with a friend at a moment where I was also having issues with anxiety or like self-esteem, which is a theme in my life, I back off, right? That I will like completely cut myself out of people. Like I have lost really good friends or lost touch with friends because I will cut myself out, right? And so, long story short, I had this friend this happened with years ago, and we recently reconnected. And she was like, "What happened?" And I realized in that moment, I was like, I don't have conversations with people. I just kind of exit, and they'll like, it'll be something so innocent and like, to them it's not a big deal, but to me it kind of hurt, right? And so I just like exit, and she's like, oh my gosh, I love her so much. Like we went to lunch and sat there for 5 hours the other week. Like that's how close we are. But I literally just removed myself because in my eyes I was like, oh, our relationship ain't really that important to her anyway, and I'm feeling funny, so I just took myself out. And so that's another thing. When you have people that you really connect with and there are those uncomfortable moments, not necessarily yours, because you put her in, she was kind of neglectful, but and those are those uncomfortable moments, having the courage to have the conversation, because I wouldn't have the conversation, but having that conversation brought back a friend that now we've known each other for almost 20 years.
Well, in that scenario for that particular friend, we had the conversation. That's why I had no problem with giving her scissors. We did have that conversation, and I didn't. It wasn't a confrontation, but I asked her, did she just point blank? Did you not feel that we're on the same path? Like you literally are talking about, how someone got mad because you could not make it to their destination wedding because you didn't have the money, and they basically were treating you a certain way, and this is a long-term friend, and they weren't returning your calls and all kinds of stuff. And I'm telling you, hey, I'm not asking anything of you. I'm just saying, hey, let's go to lunch. And you keep flaking on me. And we live in the same area.
Ooh.
So I took a hint. And, this is somebody who I kept around a while. Like I said, she went to Georgia State University. All kinds, if she listening,
don't tell her identity.
You listening, you know who I'm talking about.
No. We're not talking about it.
No, but I'm joking. But I'm just saying in general, it's like, one of those things where we had the conversation. I don't think maybe I was as detailed and as blunt as I should have been for her to get the message. Maybe I was a little bit vague, but I did let her know that, hey, we're kind of going through the same thing in our friendship, the way you're going through it with this particular person. So when it didn't go well, and I was just like, her response was, you hit me up at the wrong time all the time, right? So I was like, well, okay, well, how many times are the wrong times? Like, is it every week? Is it every month? Should I wait for you to contact me? Like, I was genuinely concerned. So then I just kind of exited stage left and, just kind of did what I had to do. And I ended up moving, and that's when she reached out. I'm like, at this point, it's too late. I'm trying to settle in and, got a whole new life going on. And it is what it is. And then the next response is not, hey, let's talk on the phone or let's talk about this. It's, hey, I'm changing my number with 10 other people.
Yeah.
So, at that point, it was kind of like, there's no personal connection there. We're good.
Yeah. So I think the thing is, right, have the conversation and then decide which way to go. Because me, I avoided the conversation and almost missed out on a great friendship. You had the conversation and realized it's not working.
Right.
So that leads me to, who should you have on your team? So Tangie, I have some roles. You throw some out there too. I think you have to have a coach, someone on your team, and there's professional coaches, right? And just a coach that will push you, right? It's that person who will push you unapologetically, right? I think you need a cheerleader. I have friends that I know if I call, they're gonna tell me I'm right. and they're gonna be like, yeah, Roselle, whether I'm mad, they're like, yeah, you should have. I texted my friend the other day. I was like, man, I was on a roll. Like I was so cranky I said, I was so cranky yesterday. I said, I just wanted to like tell everybody off. And she was like, they probably deserved it. I was like, thank you. I said, but they didn't. It was just me. So you need that cheerleader. You need that coach, a mentor, someone who's walking the path you want to go on. It's always great to have those mentors that can guide you, that can give you advice, that can pat you on the back, tell you you're doing the right thing. So I think you need different people in different roles. It doesn't have to be the same person, right? One person doesn't have to be in one category, but I think everybody needs a coach, everybody needs a cheerleader, and everybody needs a mentor. What would you add, Tangie?
The person who is, I don't know what to name them, but the realist, who's basically
You're so right.
Who's basically gonna tell you, tell you when your stuff stinks. They're gonna tell you, and you're gonna be like, you didn't have to say it like that, but you're right.
Yeah, that's my sister. I'm like, gosh. You do need and that's something about friendship I think is lost these days, is that with social media, you see a lot of people that if you say, there was a period of time where if you tell somebody something like a critique, it was you were hating, right? Like you were being a B word. Like if you told people like, hey, I think you maybe should do this, like I'm just gonna block you. And I think that's something we really need to get out of, because everyone needs to be able to take critique. I know some older people, right? 60s, 70s, 80s, whatever, who cannot take critique. Right. And so it puts them in awkward situations when you're unable. Even I take critique from my son. Right. He corrects me all the time. And sometimes I say, you get on my nerves. And sometimes I say, you know what? You're right about that. I was wrong. Right. And I think you should be open to critique from all perspectives. Make sure it's people you trust. Right. Mm-hmm. And you respect. But I think you do have to have someone that can tell you the truth. I think everybody needs that.
Yeah, I definitely agree. For me, I try to not critique people that much because I don't want them to devalue my advice. Mm-hmm. And so I do it when necessary. And I always ask them, do you want the truth or do you want me to sugarcoat it? And everybody's going to always say, oh, I don't want you to sugarcoat. I want the truth. And then I say, you sure my truth is brutal and hard? And I make sure I warn them.
Not brutal.
Brutal and hard, because I'm just gonna say it, and then I say it, and they're like, they be sitting there, and some people, it takes them a minute to process it. You can see their face as they're processing it, and they're just kind of like, "No, she didn't just say that." And I'm like, "Well, I told you, it was gonna be hard."
Yeah, it hurts, and sometimes you have to walk away, right? Sometimes you walk away and you absorb it, and then you I think when you know it's coming from a genuine place, it's easier to take it, right?
It is, and that's why, like I said, I make sure that I'm very opinionated, and I'm not gonna lie, I am very judgy, but I realize that it depends on who I'm talking to, so I will hold my opinion and hold my tongue until necessary, because I know that sometimes it can be blunt when it comes out. And that's why I always make sure that I ask, do you really want to hear it? If you say, no, I don't want to hear it, or I've had enough feedback today, or I'm going to hold it. I'm not going to just blurt it out. But I also want people to value what I have to say. So that's why I make sure that I'm like, all right, I'm not going to critique you on everything. Oh, girl, them shoes. Oh, no. Nah.
No,
we ain't gonna do that. We ain't gonna do that.
Don't do that.
We ain't gonna do that. I might be like, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. We're like, yeah. So before we go, I know we're a little bit over time. I want to talk about, where do you find people to put on your team? Where do you find people? Because we live in an age where everything's online. So we're not necessarily mingling all the time. We have to be intentional about finding people. So Tangie, where do you find people to add to your inner circle?
I'm going to be honest. I still go out to networking events. I like to see people in person, and I told you I'm about energy. So if I'm online, I really can't, make heads or tails of you. But if we are, if we are in a room someplace and I ask you a question, I can see your reaction, or you don't want me standing too close to you, or you did, whatever. I can kind of tell that moment, like, maybe I got you on a bad moment, or maybe I'm making you uncomfortable, and I know how to read cues and back off. But I think that's mainly where I go. It's hard as an adult. I think going back to your childhood days, it's always easier to make friends when you're a kid.
Mhm.
You want to be my friend, yes or no type of thing. And as an adult, I go to networking events. Even now, I go every first Thursday or first Friday, and I'll go out to a breakfast. And it might be a career breakfast, related to HR. It might be something that I just have an interest in. And when you find people who have common interests, it's easier to connect.
Yeah, I agree with that. I still do meet up from time to time. I've met some wonderful people from Meetup. I think coworkers, because you're right. When you're a kid, you go to school with people every day. So that's how you make friends and you get to know them. But as an adult, you're usually around your coworkers. If you can find some of those are good people. But be open, right? Sometimes I've been growing closer to some of my cousins now, right? So being open to those people and those energies of people who want to be in your circle, but also being intentional about nurturing those relationships. So that doesn't mean you have to spend a whole bunch of time with people, but sometimes it's just a text. If I see something, I know Grace is on here. If I see a post about a Marvel movie, I'm gonna text Grace to be like, Grace, you see this Marvel movie coming? Because we go to all the Marvel shows together, right? And that way we constantly have something to talk about because it's constantly coming out, right? So just stay in it. Schedule a monthly lunch, schedule a quarterly dinner, whatever it is. Create those simple routines that aren't overwhelming, because we have families, we have jobs, we have all of this stuff we have to take care of, but kind of fit naturally into your schedule and your life.
I definitely agree 100%.
Yeah. All right. Find people doing things that you like to do. Then you already have something in common. Yeah. So if I like going to festivals and I find someone at a festival, then, we're going to the next festival together. It's not adding, I'm not adding any work to myself, but I'm adding a person to do it with. All right, Miss Tangie, what are your last words?
My last words are choose carefully.
Choose carefully. That's it. Like, just choose carefully. Okay.
Choose carefully. Everything is a choice in life. You choose friends, you choose coaches, you choose mentors, you choose the realists, you choose everybody who's in your life, and just be careful who you let into your light.
I love it. All right. Thank you, Tangie. I so appreciate you coming on. It was such a pleasure to talk to you and a joy to see you again. Let's stay in touch, though you are in DC. Thanks to everybody. Thanks to everyone watching. Please remember, like, share, subscribe, share the video on your feed. Do it now. All right. Talk to you guys later. Bye.
Bye.